Hi there, gang. Jim Jacobus. Welcome to this no holds barred Q&A coaching session for June. First off, thanks for being here. Glad to have you guys on board. And my apologies for rescheduling the webinar for last week. I hope you got the email in time to make sure that you didn't try to log on and catch up with us. Did have a very, very dear friend of mine and iconic pastor in our neighborhood pass away, and wanted to be able to make the memorial service there. So appreciate your understanding us not being with you last week. I kind of missed you guys. It's been a while since we've done one of these. So glad to be back with you today. We're in the month of June in our podcast and our blogs and everything that we're doing, talking about power questions. And this particular webinar is going to cover some of what I think are the 4 most important power questions we can ask. There are tons of other questions that we can ask as well, and we teach a lot of that in our workshops, but we're really looking forward to what's going on around here. I hope you're following us on iTunes. We've kind of upgraded our process there. If you're not, go to iTunes and look for In the Sales Arena, and you can catch up with our podcast. So let's kick things off here and get rolling. We've started a new tradition in what we're doing, in that every one of my PowerPoint presentations is going to have a baby picture in it. So you can start looking for those in the future. I just find these things really cute, and everybody that is in an audience when we're doing a PowerPoint just kind of awes at them and everything. So we're going to just put a baby picture in every one of them. So glad to have you guys with us today. Here's our quote for the day. Knowledge is having the right answer. Intelligence is asking the right question. Knowledge is having the right answer. Intelligence is asking the right question. And quite frankly, I believe being outstanding in sales is learning how to ask all of the right questions in order to get the knowledge that comes from the answers that our clients share with us. So here's our agenda for today. First thing is I'm going to talk about 4 reasons why questions are so powerful, and the deadly SUTU disease that I see so many salespeople in our workshops suffer from, and you probably don't, but you may know somebody that does. And then I'm going to share the 4 power questions for our agenda today, and they're literally questions you can walk right out and start using immediately. These are simple questions, but they deliver a ton of information, and we're going to obviously cover that today. So 4 reasons why we think questions are so powerful in sales. First thing, we want to make sure that we are experiencing the 80-20 rule for communicating with clients. And that means this, that they are talking 80% of the time and we are talking 20% of the time. Now, that does not happen unless we are asking great questions that allow them to share information about themselves, about their business, about where their goals are. We want them talking 80% of the time and us talking 20% of the time. So kind of keep that in mind. That is our goal anytime we are working with a client. So the 80-20 rule is important. If we ask them all the right questions, they'll tell us what to sell them and whether they're sellable or not, whether they're the ideal client for us, they have a need for what we do, what they value, what the results they want are. If we're asking all the right questions, and they literally will tell us what it is that we need to sell them. And then the second thing is, if you really want to control a conversation, you can control it by asking questions. I think a lot of salespeople feel like if they're sitting and listening and the client is talking, that they're losing control of that conversation with the client. I can tell you nothing could be further from the truth. We cannot be hearing anything that they're saying when our mouth is moving. When their mouth is moving, we're gaining information. When our mouth is moving, we're expelling information. And again, that's not what top salespeople do. And then at the end of the day, they get to talk about their favorite subject. We're asking them about themselves. We're asking them about their business. We're asking them about where they're going, what they're trying to accomplish, how we can be of service to them. They're talking about their favorite subject, which is themselves. And then that's why asking questions is so powerful. And then, learning to ask great questions can keep us from what I call the SUTU disease that I see so many salespeople have, which is show up and throw up disease. Too many salespeople literally show up in front of a client, throw up all of the information they have in there, praying that something's going to stick. And I think this graphic is really a good one to describe what I see in most salespeople. Quite frankly, we do our workshops. Most salespeople are just, they believe that selling is talking. And I consider that the biggest disease that salespeople suffer from, and it kills a lot of opportunity. Those of you who've learned to ask great questions find out that the disease goes away, and customers are much more happy to see in front of them. So those are kind of the reasons why we want to ask these power questions. And again, each one of these is designed to help us gain some information. So let's look at 4 questions that we can ask. All right. Power question number 1 is this. It's what we call the plus minus question. What I really want to learn anytime I'm in front of a client is where their pain is. Where is the gap between where they want to be and where they want to go to? I teach this in our workshops all the time. Customers don't invite salespeople in just for the fun of it. It's not the best part of their day, typically because of the show up, throw up disease. They only have us there because they have some kind of a need. They have a difficulty. They have a challenge. They have a gap. We can't just simply go in and say, what's the problem you have that caused me to come in here? What I encourage you to do, and I encourage our folks in our workshops to do, is use what we call the plus minus question. And it looks like this, all right? Tell me a little bit about your organization and where you've been over the last 5 years. And they said, well, in the last 5 years, we've done this, 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 and this. What are some of the things that have gone really well for you? All right, what's worked out? What have been some of the milestones? What have been the positives? Okay, so I asked that question, and the customer's telling me about all the things that they accomplished. Let me translate this into some of those of you who are out there. I know we've got some of my speaker buddies out there. The question you ask the customer is, who have been some of the best speakers you've had in front of your audience in the last 5 years? What have been some of the best training programs you've put in front of your people in the last 5 years, and why? Those of you who sell chemicals, who are some of the companies that you love doing business with? What is it about those companies that you love? Who are your favorite sales reps? Why do you like them? Let's see here. I've got some real estate folks on there. Tell me about the last home you bought. What were some of the best experiences about buying that home? What did you enjoy about it? What do you like about your home today? So we're asking all of these positive questions. Now, once they've kind of shared all of that, then we're going to flip the script and ask what I call the negative question, or the challenging question that we really want to ask in the first place. Now, quick little note here. I can gain a lot of great information from the positives. All right, when they tell me they like the way a company does this, they like the way a salesperson does this. For my speaker consulting buddies out there, they say, hey, we really loved Claire Paulson when she came in and spoke for us, okay? Well, that tells me a little bit about who they like, what kind of style they have. And by the way, it also tells me what price point they're used to paying, okay? So all of these things that they're telling me that are positives, I'll be gathering that information, and it's giving me a lot of useful data as well. Now, once I have gotten all of that useful data, then I might ask the reverse of that question. And I always want to make sure that I make it safe for the customer. And I'll say something along the lines of, look, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus here. I don't really need to know names, but what do the companies look like? What does a sales rep look like? Who were the speakers that didn't do such a good job for you? All right. And what was it about what they did that you didn't like? What was it about the product that you bought that you didn't like? What was it about that vendor that you didn't like? What was it about a sales rep, no names, you didn't like? What was it about, fill in the blank of the great experience that you just told me about? What was it about that experience that when done wrong creates problems for you? And I'll even ask, they'll say, well, their delivery was really just terrible. All right. The company that we bought the chemicals from, for my Axel Nobel team out there that are listening in right now. What was it about the company that you bought chemicals from, for the coatings from, that you didn't like? Well, I didn't like their delivery. What was it about their delivery that wasn't effective for you? Well, they would tell me it was going to be 3 days and it'd wind up being 5 days. Interesting. When that happens, what does that do to your production? Okay, so I'm diving into what the challenges are so that later on when I create a presentation for them, I can highlight the things that we do that either go beyond what they told me they already like or solves the gap between where they are and where they wish they could be. So we call this the plus minus question. Always ask them what's working to find out what doesn't work. Okay, any questions about that? Does that make sense? If that makes sense, just raise your hand real quick. Let me see that that came across well. If you have a question, type it into the little Q&A section down there. Okay, good deal, good deal. Looks like it's making sense to you guys. Okay, thanks, cool. All right, I'll put all the hands down and we'll move on to the next question. Now, here's another one of my favorite things to do. And we teach this in our objection handling. One of the biggest objections that salespeople have, consultants have, speakers have, is that the price is too high. So knowing that that's an objection that we hate to deal with, I'm going to deal with the objection before I ever put a proposal in front of somebody. I want to know how they go about evaluating price in the first place. So I'm going to handle the price objection up front with a great question during the qualifying of that particular client. Here's the question I like. If I were to bring you a proposal, how would you go about evaluating price? All right. Another way of asking that is if I brought you a solution that was maybe 20% higher than what you're paying now, but I can demonstrate a measurable 3-to-1 return on investment, would you be interested in that business case? In other words, I want to find out, are they just looking for the cheapest price? Are they willing to compare apples to oranges if I brought them a solution that was different than what they're buying today? If I brought them a business case where I was going to charge them a higher price, but I could demonstrate a return on investment in real dollars to them, would they be interested in listening to that case? So in essence, I have found out how they're going to evaluate price right from the beginning. Now, quick little note here. If you, again, you're one of my gang out there that are Halliburton or AkzoNobel that are listening in. We've got so many people on nowadays, I can't keep track of everybody out there, but I can see some of your names. If they said, now, you know what, I'm just going for the cheapest price. And you guys at AkzoNobel, I know that you guys don't have the cheapest price and everything. You guys have a premium product and everything. You want to qualify that response by saying, is that literally on everything? And they may go, yep, on everything. It's just the cheapest price possible. I may, kind of say, well, in that case, we may not be the best vendor for you, although there are some places where we have really good positions on pricing. What if you gave me some of those things that you buy in larger quantities, and let's just check it out and see where we're at? Okay, and let's see if we're, if he really is getting a great price or not. If she's really a price buyer, and kind of test it out. But I'm probably going to set it up with saying, we're probably not the best resource for the cheapest price. We tend to be more focused on solutions that deliver a higher return on investment. I might follow up by saying, if I brought you a solution that was 20% higher, but I can demonstrate a real world dollar measurable 3-to-1 return on investment, would you be interested? And find out if they go, nope, not interested in that at all. Okay, well then, it may not be our best client. So I am going to deal with the price is too high objection in the qualifying process by asking this question. Then it's a legit question. It's easy to ask. They will get a lot of credibility by the fact that we asked this up front. But the real question I like here is, if I brought you a solution that was 20% higher, but I could demonstrate a measurable 3-to-1 return on investment, would you be interested? And again, that's an important question to ask, and that's a great follow-up to, no, I just go the cheapest price. I'm always looking for the cheapest price. Because most anybody would, in the right mind, that's logical, would be willing to pay a little bit more if they could get a 3-to-1 return on investment. So I hope that makes sense to you. But then we obviously, when we bring them back to the proposal, we've got to be able to demonstrate measurable ROI. All right, any questions out there real quick before I move on to question number 3? Any questions about this? Okay, yeah. Let's see here. A couple of my speaker buddies out there are asking, how do you do that with a keynote? Okay. Guys, I'm going to do a session at the National Speaker Association titled "How to Talk the Language of Big Deals," and that language is talking ROI. Now, I charge what I charge for a keynote, but what we deliver in a keynote is not just the keynote itself, which many of our peers do out there. We have a very specific process to customize the keynote, deliver the keynote, but our follow-up process is what really drives the results out into the future and actually increases our fees on a regular basis. And that follow-up is I come back home, I take the PowerPoint from the presentation I did, I do a voiceover of the key points that we covered. I send it back to the client. They distribute it to all the attendees. Sometimes we distribute that. If the client doesn't want to do that, all the attendee has to do is give us an email address. And by the way, it's a great ethical bribe to grow our list, if you will. So we send them that. Then we do a webinar, FAQ webinar, 30 days later to cover their implementation challenges. And then once a month for 4 months in a row, we deliver a short little 10-minute video out there driving the learning out 6 months into the future. What we find is, one, I can charge more for my keynotes and obviously training and breakout sessions than most of my peers do because we're driving results. And then the second thing is that a lot of clients will then hire us to continue that follow-up process for another 6 months and some even as much as 24 months. And we add on fees there. So they know, though, that if we're driving that keynote or that breakout session or even a training session out in the future, they're willing to pay more for that keynote, or we just simply charge for a follow-up program. So that's how we do that in the speaking side of all of this. All right. Any other questions out there? Good question from my speaker consulting buddies. It's all about follow-up and driving results out in the future. All right, cool. All right, let's look at the next one here. Power question number 3, another one of my favorite questions. And if you have attended any of our webinars in the past or listened to our podcast, you know that we divide our value propositions into 3 categories. We have the company or corporate value proposition, we have the product or service value proposition, and then we have our personal value proposition. All right, and so we divide our questions up into questions that are designed to find out what they value from the company they do business with. Then we have questions divided into that sector that tells us what they value from the products or services that they buy. But the real meat is found in being able to ask the personal level questions. And this is my favorite personal level question. Mark, if we were to work together, if we were to be successful on this proposal, if we were to take on your project, a year from now, what would you consider a personal home run? All right. Now, if I can ask that question and find out what he or she would consider a personal home run, then as long as I deliver that, when it's all said and done, they're going to go, Jim was awesome. Jim did a great job on that project. Jim did a great job on that proposal. All right. Laura was awesome on that keynote. Laura was awesome on that consulting project. Whatever it happens to be, they'll think we hung the moon because we delivered what they value personally. Now, the old adage has always been that people buy for personal reasons and they justify for business reasons. Now, more and more every day, people want to know they're going to get a good ROI from our product or our service. But at the end of the day, if they don't like us, they're probably not going to find a way to justify buying from us. If they do like us, they're more likely to justify a reason for buying from us because they do like us, as long as we can demonstrate a good ROI, a good delivery of product or service. So, I ask the clients all the time, if I were to do this keynote for you, all right, if you were to hire me to do this keynote, when it's all said and done, when the keynote is over with and I get on the plane and fly home and you fly back to your corporate headquarters, what would you consider a personal home run? A year from now, what would you consider a personal home run? And that answer, when I turn around and do a proposal for them, is the one thing that I have got to demonstrate I can make happen in order to give them plenty of reason to justify the business reason for hiring me. All right. And I can tell you this, I tell all of my bureau clients that I work with, get me on the phone with the client. I'm going to ask the right questions. I'm going to find out what they value, but I'm going to ask this question here in order to find out what personally matters to them. And then when I'm telling them what we're going to do, I'm going to make sure that I demonstrate I'm going to deliver this. This is a huge power question. Learn to ask it. It also demonstrates that the client has allowed us to get through the corporate level questions, to get through the business level questions, and we've now earned the right to ask that personal question. Again, if we were to be successful in this project, if we were to work together, if we were to take on this proposal a year from now, what would you consider a personal home run? When the project is over, what would you consider a personal home run? When the keynote is done, what would you consider a personal home run? However you want to ask that, learn to ask this question. This is a killer question, gang. And again, it's going to give us tremendous information and insight into what we need to make sure we demonstrate we can deliver to the client. Okay, questions? Yeah, okay. Raise your hand if that makes sense to you. Not a lot of questions today, gang. This is in a no holds barred Q&A, so you can ask any questions you want to. All right, makes sense. Okay. All right, I'm going to do something here in a minute, so you guys might as well get ready for it. I'm going to come and ask somebody, all right, what's the one question you have for me today? Okay, I'm going to ask you that here in just a minute, so somebody can get ready for that. All right, here is my favorite question, all right, and I love teaching this, and I watch the lights go on when I teach this question in workshops, and I just love this question. We call it the Columbo. And let's see here. I'm looking at some people out there who probably are too young, like Mark Gobert. Some of you are too young to maybe even know who Columbo is. And if you've never heard of Columbo, go on YouTube, search for Columbo. You'll find some videos and watch what he did. Columbo was a detective, somewhat disheveled looking, hair out of place, always a little sloppy, had a cigar, kind of always looked like he was lost or confused. And but he asked amazing questions. And again, just from a sales standpoint, watching Columbo do his thing is a great example of what asking great questions look like. So let's see here. He played stupid. Okay, Mark, you do know who Columbo is. Makes my day, my man. Okay. So yeah, he always kind of played the dumb guy. He played like he didn't know what he was doing. And again, just a great approach to the whole thing. And he was very disarming to all of those that were listening to him. So we teach this Columbo approach, all right? And here's what we teach. And like I said, I love teaching this. You've done your presentation, however you do that. You may be on the phone with a client, you may be face to face, whatever you're doing, you're kind of wrapping up. And Columbo would gather his hat and put it on his head, and he'd get his coat and he'd either put it over his arm or he'd put it on and everything, and he'd be heading out the door, literally reaching for the doorknob, maybe halfway out the door, and he would turn back around and he would say, do you mind if I ask you one more question? And the person, all right, that he was talking to, because it was disarming, because he'd asked so many questions about them. And again, this is really important. If you've done a great job of asking your potential client or your existing customer a lot of great questions, and you say, do you mind if I ask you one more question? They're going to go, sure, all right. Then we're going to say, what's going to be the difference between, and I'll give you some examples, all right? If you looked at our webinars, how to get a 15-minute meeting with anybody, and then what to do when you get there, we teach at the very end of that meeting, you've gathered all your information and you're walking out the door. It's going to sound like this. Do you mind if I ask you one more question? And the client goes, no, what's that? What's going to be the difference between the person you let back through that door on a regular basis and the sales reps who never have that privilege on a consistent day-to-day basis? What's going to be the difference between the sales rep you let back through that door on a day-to-day basis and the ones that you never see again? What's going to be the difference in the person that you allow to take on this consulting project? What's going to be the difference in the person that's going to allow you to provide the protective coatings for your vessels? Who's going to be the difference in the speaker that you hire for this keynote event and the one that never has the privilege of standing in front of your audience? What's going to be the difference between the person that you allow to sell your home and the person that doesn't get the privilege of putting their sign out front? All right. It's what's the difference between who I am today and who I am going to need to be in order to earn your business long term is how you're going to create a variation of that question. All right. Does that make sense? Let me see here. I've got a question or comment. Okay, Claire is sharing. If we were meeting here 1, 2, 3, 4 years from today, what will have needed to have happened for you to be personally and professionally happen with our progress? Boy, Claire, that is an awesome question. Again, it tells us what's the difference between where they're at right now, the gap that they perceive they need to go through, and them being happy a year, 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years from now. That's an outstanding question. Absolutely. And it allows them to paint a picture for us. Okay. So, but this Columbo question, though, gang, I'm telling you, learn to use it on your way out the door, right before you close out the phone call, if you will, where they're interviewing you for a consulting project or whatever. Do you mind if I ask you one more question? No, what's that? What's going to be the difference in the person who has the opportunity to be of service to you and the one that you never see again? All right, so that with some variation of that, the answer to that question is just like asking the personal question a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from 4 years from now, what would you consider a personal home run? All right, so those are the 4 power questions. Let's see, do you guys have any more questions for us out there? Again, we're trying to keep these things a little shorter and sweeter to the point, less than 30 minutes. We're at 27 minutes right now. Any questions you guys have before we sign off today? Let me see here. Okay. All right. No, nothing's coming up. Good comments. No, thank you. I appreciate that, gang. I love this subject matter. I love teaching it in our workshops. It's one of my favorite things to do. All right. You're welcome. Thank you. Very kind words. Thank you, guys. Welcome. Glad you have on here. Okay. Well, again, I guess that's it for today. Unless you guys have any questions, I really appreciate you. Things are going really cool. We're doing a lot of reworking on our website. You guys are going to see some new stuff coming out from us. I hope you notice the difference. Certainly going to try to make a better experience for you. One thing that you will see coming out, gang, you're signed up for this webinar right now. We are upgrading our security systems and our methodologies for communicating with you. I will be at some time here in the near future, probably the July or August timeframe, be setting this webinar back up again as a different link. We're going to put everybody back through a process of signing up for it. But in doing so, it's going to allow us to serve you better. I hope you don't mind taking a moment or two to do that. It's going to help us weed out some people who aren't actually attending the webinars that signed on a long time ago, and kind of upgrade some things, upgrade your experience in a lot of ways. So look for that to be coming here in the next month and a half or 2 months. And again, my apologies in advance for the fact that we're going to be doing that. So great time. I appreciate you guys. Go out there and do something significant now to grow your sales career and build the business that you want. I look forward to seeing you next week. We're going to be talking next week about ideal customers and how to identify them so that you can grow your business faster and more quickly. Again, hope you guys enjoying the webinars. Hope you're checking into the podcast, doing a whole month of power questions over there. And again, love to have you join us. So thanks a lot. You guys have a great week. Take care.